Okay, well, it's only money, Pop. Besides, I'm just doing what you do. Spend, spend, spend.
I can't get nowhere with this Mr. Hendricks, but I want to keep him here. All he seems to like is the way you keep mouthing at me.
Getting plenty of booze?
No, plenty of Cynthia.
What really happened to the cast of The Jeffersons after the show ended? Did their lives stay as happy as the characters they played? Or did they face struggles that no one expected? Some of their stories are heartbreaking.
And considering that I've been cooped up here for 3 days with no one to talk to.
Are you ready to learn the truth about their journeys? Let's delve in, starting with...
Because I want to start recording the years as they pass.
Isabelle Sanford played Louise Jefferson on the show. She was the strong, smart wife of George Jefferson, and she was the only one who could control him, especially when it came to his rude comments. George liked to say things like, "The Lord created everyone equal, except for you." But Louise always had the last word. In fact, Isabel once said that one of her favorite parts of playing Louise was that Louise always won the argument with George.
Turn out the light, George.
No!
Isabel was born on August 29, 1917, and was 46 years old when The Jeffersons first aired in 1975. She won an Emmy Award for her role in 1981, becoming the first Black woman to win an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a comedy series. Many years later, in 2023, actress Quinta Brunson became the second Black woman to win the same Emmy for her role in Abbott Elementary.
And the Emmy goes to Quinta Brunson, Abbott Elementary.
Take John down, Carl will go this way.
Isabel didn't even want the role of Louise at first. When she went for the audition, she thought she did terribly. She was actually auditioning for a smaller role as Louise's sister, Maxine. But the casting team liked her so much that they offered her the part of Louise instead. At first, Isabel didn't want to leave All in the Family, where her character, Louise, was first introduced. But after some persuasion, she agreed to take the role. She later admitted that the producers made it clear they would find another actress if she refused. That was a tough decision for her, especially since many other actors had been treated badly by the network. After The Jeffersons ended, Isabel had a tough time finding big roles. She had her own TV show in 1987 called Isabel's Honeymoon Hotel, but it was canceled quickly. She then appeared in small roles in shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and The Steve Harvey Show.
People have come a long way for you to be coming in here with that voodoo, scary Dracula.
Sadly, after health problems, Isabel passed away on July 9, 2004, at the age of 86. She was a trailblazer in the TV world and will always be remembered for her strong, unforgettable role as Louise Jefferson.
I can't get nowhere with this Mr. Hendricks, but I want to keep him here. All he seems to like is the way you keep mouthing at me.
George Jefferson, the character everyone loved to watch on TV, was played by Sherman Hemsley. George was the loud, opinionated, and often rude man who lived with his wife, Louise, and son, Lionel, in a fancy apartment. He wasn't shy about speaking his mind and often clashed with his neighbors, especially with Archie Bunker on All in the Family, and later with Tom Willis on The Jeffersons. George loved to say things like, "Better blue than white," and he wasn't afraid to show his bigoted side. But over time, just like a character in a hero story, George grew more tolerant, even though he stayed short-tempered and impatient, which became his trademark.
Look, stop hon and listen. Now, when he gets off the phone, serve us our drinks and then keep insulting me, okay?
George Jefferson was born on July 30th, 1929, which made him 46 years old when The Jeffersons first aired. But Sherman Hemsley, the actor who played George, was actually much younger. Hemsley was born on February 1st, 1938, making him 37 years old when he first took on the role of George Jefferson. This meant that Hemsley was only 11 years older than the actors who played his son, Mike and Damon Evans, and 21 years younger than Isabelle Sanford, who played his wife Louise. The creator of All in the Family, Norman Lear, knew from the start that he wanted Sherman Hemsley to play George Jefferson. But at the time, Hemsley was busy with a Broadway show, so Lear waited for him to finish. Because of this, George didn't appear until season 4 of All in the Family. At first, Hemsley wasn't even sure what role he would play. He thought it might be for another show called Sanford and Son. When he found out he was meant to play George Jefferson, he was nervous. The audience had been waiting for George's big debut, and Hemsley didn't want to disappoint them. But when George finally appeared, the character was a hit right away. After the Jeffersons ended, Hemsley found it hard to keep up the fame he had enjoyed playing George. He took on smaller roles in TV and movies. One of his most famous roles after the Jeffersons was playing Deacon Ernest Fry on the sitcom Amen, which ran for 5 seasons.
Judge Robertson, it's so good to see you, sir.
It's so easy to see you, Philip.
Hemsley also appeared in a few movies with his Jeffersons co-stars, including Love at First Bite in 1979, Sprung in 1997, and Mafia in 1998. Hemsley never married and didn't have any children. There were rumors that he was gay, but Hemsley was a very private person, and some people even described him as a recluse. He preferred to stay out of the spotlight when he wasn't acting. Sherman Hemsley passed away on July 24, 2012, at the age of 74, from cancer. His death was surrounded by strange circumstances. His body was kept in a morgue for 4 months before he was buried because there was a dispute about who had the right to bury him. His close friend and business manager, Flora Enchinton Bernil, and his estranged brother, Richard Thornton, couldn't agree on where he should be laid to rest. In the end, Sherman Hemsley was buried at Fort Bliss National Cemetery in Texas with full military honors, as he had served in the Air Force. It was a sad end for a man who brought laughter to so many people. George Jefferson might have been a tough character, but Sherman Hemsley was a man who left a lasting impact on TV history.
But what's all that got to do with you getting kicked out of school?
Well, the next thing I know, there was cops all over the place, and I got picked up and hauled off with everybody else to the dean's office.
Well, after you told him your story.
He didn't believe me.
We all know the reason why, 'cause you black.
Nah.
Ain't no other explanation for it.
Well, there's got to be in this case, because the dean's black, too.
There's something I don't quite understand about this. Lionel, they can't throw you out of school without a hearing.
Mike Evans, who played Lionel Jefferson on the show, was unexpectedly fired from the show, and there are a few theories about why that happened. One theory is that Evans demanded more money and more screen time because he believed he was the original Jefferson. This was a big deal to him because, besides playing Lionel, Evans was also a co-creator of the show. In fact, The Jeffersons was based on his original idea. So when Evans asked for more, Norman Lear, the show's creator, didn't give in to his demands. Instead, the story goes that Lear just fired him. It was like, "You're gone. It's over," with no discussion. Some people say that Lear didn't have a problem with letting Evans go.
Hey, well, it's only money, Pop. Besides, I'm just doing what you do. Spend, spend, spend.
Another simpler theory is that Evans decided to leave the show to focus on his writing. Evans was also a co-creator of Good Times, a show loosely based on his own childhood. The youngest character on Good Times, JJ, was even named after him. So it makes sense that Evans might have wanted to step away from acting and concentrate on his writing. Evans would later return to The Jeffersons for a few more seasons. He came back for seasons 6 to 8 and again for seasons 9 to 10. But after season 11, the show was canceled without warning. The cast didn't know ahead of time. Sherman Hemsley, who played George Jefferson, found out the show was canceled by reading about it in the newspaper. Isabelle Sanford, who played Louise Jefferson, heard the news from a family member. She was shocked when her cousin in New York told her, "The Jeffersons has been canceled." It's hard to imagine how they must have felt not getting a chance to say goodbye to the show properly.
There was never a closing episode of The Jeffersons.
Never was, and that's what I'm upset about until today. And I have said that publicly several times.
After the cancellation of The Jeffersons, Mike Evans stopped acting and disappeared from the spotlight. He became a successful property investor and kept his life private. Sadly, Evans passed away on December 14, 2006, from throat cancer at the age of 57. Damon Evans, who played Lionel after Mike left the show, stepped in to take his place. Damon was only a few weeks younger than Mike Evans. Before he got the role on The Jeffersons, Damon had actually auditioned for the role of JJ on Good Times, but didn't get it. When Mike Evans left The Jeffersons after season 1, Norman Lear needed a replacement. He saw Damon in a TV commercial and decided to hire him.
I'll be working with digital circuitry, integrated bypass systems, analytical frequency.
Damon had always wanted to work on a Norman Lear show. He admired how Lear's sitcoms tackled real-life issues. However, Damon wasn't familiar with the Jeffersons before joining the cast. He admitted that he had been too busy building his career to watch TV. Because of this, he struggled to adjust to the role at first, but eventually made it his own. Damon didn't enjoy working on a sitcom, though. He didn't like the acting style and sometimes didn't even show up for work. After season 4, Damon left the Jeffersons to pursue his first love, musical theater. Damon made some small TV appearances after the Jeffersons, but nothing that became well-known. He is also a private person about his personal life. Damon is openly gay and happily married, but he keeps details about his partner very private. As of now, Damon is 74 years old.
You mean you love me enough to let me go? Isn't this man fantastic?
That's dope.
Jenny Willis Jefferson, played by Berlinda Tolbert, was a memorable character on the show. Jenny was Lionel's wife and the daughter of Tom and Helen Willis, a couple of different races. Tom was white and Helen was black. This made Jenny a mixed-race woman, which caused some challenges in her life, especially with Lionel's father, George Jefferson. Jenny was smart and intelligent. She met Lionel while they were in college, and they eventually got married. The couple later had a daughter named Jessica. Although Jenny and Lionel had some good times together, their marriage ended in divorce. But before that happened, they shared some great moments, and Jenny's character was beloved by fans for her kindness and love for Lionel. Berlinda Tolbert, who played Jenny, was born on November 4th, 1949. Interestingly, her birth month was the same as Mike and Damon Evans, who played characters on the show. Before playing Jenny on The Jeffersons, Tolbert's character was introduced on All in the Family, a show that came before The Jeffersons. At first, the role was played by actress Lynn Moody, but Berlinda Tolbert later took over the role of Jenny full-time.
Oh, but I want to cry. It makes me happy. What?
In The Jeffersons, George Jefferson, Lionel's father, did not like the idea of his son marrying a mixed-race woman. He would often call Jenny a zebra, which was a way to insult her because her father was white and her mother was black. George did not approve of their marriage, and this created tension between him and Lionel. But despite the challenges, Jenny and Lionel's relationship showed the power of love and how people can break down racial barriers, even in tough times. Not much is known about Berlinda Tolbert's life after The Jeffersons ended. She continued to act in TV shows and movies, but mostly in small roles or as a guest star. She appeared in shows like Seventh Heaven, Home Improvement, ER, 6 Feet Under, and CSI Crime Scene Investigation. Her last acting role was in a short film called Just Another Man's Story, which came out in 2013. In her personal life, Berlinda Tolbert has been happily married to journalist Bob Reed since 1979. They have had a long and happy marriage, and Berlinda seems to be enjoying her life outside of acting. As of now, she is 74 years old and living a peaceful life away from the spotlight.
Getting plenty of booze?
No, plenty of Cynthia.
Harry Bentley was a character on the show. He was the neighbor of George and Louise Jefferson. Harry was an Englishman who worked as a Russian translator for the United Nations. He was polite and well-meaning, but sometimes his good intentions would drive George crazy. This led to George slamming the door in Harry's face a lot. Despite this, Harry was a nice guy who just wanted to help. We don't know Harry's exact age, but it's easy to guess he was around the same age as the actor who played him, Paul Benedict. Paul Benedict was born on September 17th, 1938, so he would have been about 37 years old when he started playing Harry in the show. Even though Harry annoyed George, George would sometimes agree to walk on Harry's back to help with his back pain. But in later seasons, George stopped doing it. This happened because the actor, Paul Benedict, gained weight in real life, and it became too hard for him to do the scene where George tramples on his back. Paul Benedict played the role of Harry so well that people often thought he was British, just like his character. But in real life, he was from America. Paul Benedict also had a health condition called acromegaly. This is when the pituitary gland produces too much growth hormone. It made his face look different, but instead of letting it stop him, he used his appearance to help with his acting. Another actor on The Jeffersons, Irwin Keyes, also had acromegaly. Both actors turned their condition into something special in their roles. After The Jeffersons, Paul Benedict kept working in theater and TV. One of his most notable roles was in a Broadway play in 1996 called Huey, where he starred with famous actor Al Pacino. Paul Benedict also appeared in movies and TV shows. One of his most famous roles was as the Mad Painter on Sesame Street. Paul Benedict's last acting job was in a comedy movie called Side by Each in 2008. Sadly, Paul Benedict passed away later that year, on December 1st, 2008, at the age of 70. He died from a brain hemorrhage. He was survived by his wife, Mary Ann. Even though Paul Benedict is no longer with us, fans will always remember him for his role as Harry Bentley and the many other characters he brought to life on screen.
Considering that I've been cooped up here for 3 days with no one to talk to.
Mother Jefferson, whose real name was Zara Cully, played a memorable character on The Jeffersons. She was the sharp-tongued, witty mother of George Jefferson. Her character was known for her mean streak, and especially when it came to teasing her daughter-in-law, Louise. Even though they would often argue, the two women had a lot of affection for each other, and the tension was always playful. One of Mother Jefferson's favorite things was drinking a Bloody Mary, a drink she often used to help her think, as she would say. In the show, Mother Jefferson was said to have been born in 1901, which would have made her 74 years old when the show first aired. But in real life, Zara Cully, who played her, was born on January 26, 1892. This made her nearly a decade older than the character she portrayed. Sadly, during the 3rd season of The Jeffersons, Cully fell seriously ill. She was diagnosed with pneumonia and had a collapsed lung, which caused her to miss a lot of episodes. Later, when she returned for the 4th season, her health took another turn for the worse. She was diagnosed with cancer and passed away on February 28, 1978, at the age of 86. To honor her memory, the creators of The Jeffersons decided to have Mother Jefferson's character die on the show as well. It was a respectful way to mark Zara Cully's passing.
Put the apple away.
That's what I'm doing.
George!
Another beloved character on The Jeffersons was Florence Johnston, played by Marla Gibbs. Florence was the Jeffersons' maid, and she was known for her sharp wit and ability to push George Jefferson's buttons. She and George were constantly at odds, with George often complaining about her work. He would call her lazy and threaten to fire her, but Louise would always step in to defend Florence. Despite their bickering, Florence always showed respect for George and Louise by calling them Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson. Florence was also known for her memorable catchphrase, "Well, how come nobody told me?" which became a fan favorite. She was full of attitude but always had a clever response, which made her one of the most memorable characters on the show. Florence might have been a bit of a troublemaker, but she was a loyal part of the Jefferson family, and her humor added to the fun of the show. Born on June 14, 1931. This means she was around 44 years old when the show started, which is the same age as the character she played. Florence was supposed to be a character who only appeared sometimes, but people loved her so much that the creators of the show decided to make her a regular. Before she became famous for playing Florence, Mara Gibbs was working hard to make a name for herself as an actress. She worked as a reservations agent for United Airlines, answering phones and booking flights. Even after landing the role of Florence on The Jeffersons, she kept her job at United Airlines. It's funny to think that people calling in to make a flight reservation would sometimes recognize her voice. When the character Mother Jefferson left the show, the creators needed someone to fill the empty spot. They decided to offer Mara Gibbs a full-time contract to make Florence a bigger part of the show. After that, Gibbs quit her job at United Airlines and focused on acting full-time. When The Jeffersons was suddenly canceled, Mara Gibbs didn't stop acting. In 1985, she got the lead role in another TV show called 227, where she played Mary Jenkins. The show ran for 5 seasons and was very popular. After 227, Mara continued acting and appeared in many TV shows, including Passions, Days of Our Lives, The First Family, and even Grey's Anatomy between 2022 and 2024.
Excuse me, is that how you greet your mama? I'm sorry for disrespecting you.
In her personal life, Mara was married to her high school sweetheart, Jordan Gibbs, from 1955 to 1973. They had 3 children together, Angela, Dorian, and Joseph. As of 2024, Mara Gibbs is still acting at the age of 93. She continues to do interviews and share her experiences with fans. Mara's story shows how hard work and dedication can lead to success, even when things don't always go as planned. She became a beloved part of the Jeffersons and has had a long and successful career in entertainment.
Tom, would you please pinch me?
Sure, may I pick my spot?
Tom Willis, played by Franklin Cover, was George and Louise Jefferson's neighbor on the famous TV show, The Jeffersons. There was one thing that didn't sit well with George at first. Tom was a white man married to a black woman, and they had a mixed-race daughter. George wasn't sure how to feel about it, but over time, he saw that Tom was a good person. Tom was kind and caring, but sometimes too much so. He would let people, especially his wife and even George, take advantage of him. Tom was born on July 4th, 1928, just a few months before the actor who played him, Franklin Cover, who was born on November 20th, 1928. This meant both Tom and Franklin were around 47 years old when The Jeffersons first aired. In the early seasons, George would often make fun of Tom, calling him names like honky, which was a word that George used to insult white people. But as the show went on and after George's son married Tom's daughter, George and Tom became good friends. At one point, Sherman Hemsley, who played George, asked the writers to stop using the word honky because he felt it didn't fit his character anymore. The writers didn't agree at first, but Sherman made sure to mumble the word every time it was used, making it hard to understand. Eventually, they stopped using it, and George's insults were mostly about Tom's weight instead. After The Jeffersons ended, Franklin Cover kept acting in shows like The Love Boat, ER, and Will and Grace. His last acting role was in 1999. Cover was married to Mary Bradford Stone for 41 years until his death in 2006 from pneumonia at the age of 77. He passed away without even knowing the show had been canceled, learning about it on TV like everyone else.